it's always a pleasure to introduce Monica. I know, looking at the names, a number of you will have met Monica either when you were training with us, so on our embodied coaching or advanced embodied coaching modules on our diploma and advanced diploma course, or in supervision. You may have met Monica in supervision as well. So Monica's one of our core faculty team. As I've said, is a supervisor. Monica, what else would you like to share about your work?
Without going into too much detail, I suppose I always say there are 4 pillars to it. So there's embodiment is very clearly one pillar. Energy and energy awareness is another. And they're all connected, systemic consciousness and awareness. And there's a kind of a spiritual aspect which isn't religious. It's more about, what's your purpose? What gives you life force? And they're all connected. They all work together. So I do a mixture of coaching and supervision and different sorts of consciousness things. So,
Yeah. And we also run retreats together, don't we? And for coaches as well. So Monica, we're going to talk about the 3 energetic centers today. So I thought it may be helpful to start with perhaps a short positioning around leadership embodiment practice, just in terms of your work, your experience. So I'm just wondering what you would like to say about that at the start of this conversation.
For me, when I discovered leadership embodiment quite a few years ago now, it's like coming home because I was always very kinesthetic. But I think, embodied leadership is based on 2 key things. One is mindfulness and one is Aikido. And the principles of Aikido I find very powerful because one is we're all one, we're all connected. And the other, it sounds weird to say this in terms of coaching, but the meaning behind it is important. The phrase would be protect your attacker as much as yourself. And what that means is that, nobody gets up in the morning to be a problem for other people. It's just something happens and their reactive pattern is set off. And then, there's a whole reaction happens in the other person. So, for me, I found it really inspiring to have those principles. And the 3 energy centers I have found really useful and inspiring as well. I might just start with a short centering, which brings in the 3 centers. I'm conscious people are joining here in their lunchtime, and I'm sure some of you have been working already this morning, coming from other things and probably going to other things. So I call this collecting self. It's one of the ones that Wendy Palmer, who was the founder of Embodied Leadership, used to use every now and again. And I find it really inspiring. So I'm going to invite you all to just take a moment to make good contact between your feet and the ground. If you're sitting or if you're standing, whichever it is, just bring your attention down into your feet. And if it helps to close your eyes or just have a soft gaze so that you're able to bring your focus inside. And as you go inside and slow down, everything becomes a little bit quieter, a little bit calmer. And as we collect ourselves, I'm going to begin by collecting and inviting in our mind. So what if your mind was like your favorite night sky? Calm, peaceful, vast, filled with planets that we don't even know about. Huge capacity. And insights and the right ideas just arrive like twinkling stars, just at the right moment. What if your mind was like your favorite night sky? And then inviting in our heart. And if you could bring to mind your favorite lake or sea or any water that you have been connected to in your life, a river or a stream. And bring that to mind. And what if your heart was as vast as the ocean or a lake? Life enhancing, flowing. Even when it's rough on the surface or agitated, there's a deep calm in the depths. What if your heart could be like your favorite expanse of water? And then connecting in with our center, our gut center. And I liken this to a mountain. Our gut center is our place of confidence and power. So if you bring to mind your favorite mountain, whether you've ever seen it or just a picture of it in your mind, what if your center could be like a mountain? Tall, ageless, connected to the wisdom of the sky and the freedom of the sky, and deeply rooted in the earth. Always there, never changing. Stability. Solid. What if your center could be like your favorite mountain? And as you connect with the sense of the different energies of your three centers, that's something you can bring to mind every now and again for yourself on a day when you could do with just some bit of calm in your system. So that's called collecting self. So.
Thanks, Monica. I'm noticing I feel grounded and expanded as a result of doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I noticed myself feeling very calm and solid.
So now you sort of touched perhaps into some qualities of those energetic centers. Maybe now just say a bit more in terms of how you would describe those centers. And I'm also thinking about the idea of personality and center as well, Monica.
Yeah, so again, from embodied leadership, Wendy Palmer used to kind of designate that there are two parts of us, and one is the part of us that she called personality. It's not like personality profiles that we think of, but it's just the part of us that wants to have everything perfect and keep everybody safe and wants to have some control. And then there's center, which is the part of us, if you think of being in a state of flow or zen, like where, you could be working on something and time just disappears. You're so much in the flow of it. It's that quality that things come through you and things go with ease. So the two very different experiences. And quite often, when we fall into personality, we need something that will restore us to that place of centeredness. And I might say a little bit around the three centers and what their purpose is. So if we think about the mind, the mind was the brain that arrived last on the scene. We have access to big picture thinking and our prefrontal cortex. But when the mind is uncentered, it's trying to understand and it analyzes, and it's, you'd see people with furrowed brows and scratching their head. There's a real efforting in it. And there's also a sense of a dog with a bone that won't let something go, even if it's not a useful thought. Sometimes you see this with clients. So that's the uncentered head. It has a good intention, but it's not skillful. The centered mind, on the other hand, is like the night sky that I just described. It's calm, it's open, it's available, it's there for perception, actually. It's sort of, quiet, and it listens to the heart and it listens to the gut, which both have their own intelligences to offer. And so when you have a centered mind, you're able to find just the right question at the right time in a coaching session. You're able to listen to your intuitive sense and to offer it with a real non-attachment and peacefulness. If we talk about the heart, the heart is very much about connection. So when our heart has the hormone of oxytocin, which is the rapport chemical. And actually, HeartMath has done a lot of research around the intelligence of the heart. And our heart electromagnetic field extends out way beyond the body. Energetically, we can connect with people in other places. But the uncentered heart is almost kind of like a needy, looking for approval. Do they value me? Do they see what I'm doing? Am I connected? There's a real sense of working hard and trying to please people or convince people. When the heart is centered, there's this openness and availability and compassion. There's a sense of inclusivity. And there isn't an efforting involved, because we know at some level when our heart is open, it opens the hearts of others. And then if we come to our gut center, the gut center, is connected to the reptilian brain. And so it's kind of the early warning system. It tells us when something doesn't feel quite right. In fact, the gut is the very first part when a child is conceived. The gut, after the 7th week, the gut begins to form. So our gut is already learning while we're in the womb, and the other parts develop later. The heart comes next, and then the actual brain. So our gut has a lot of information for us. When it's uncentered, it gets scared and it wants to control things. It wants to have rules to make everything safe. If I do this, then this has to happen. You can't do that because. And if you think of the time of COVID, everybody became very fearful, and a lot of systems were put in place to protect us, which weren't necessarily very life enhancing. So there's a kind of a real fearfulness and control about the gut when it's uncentered. Whereas when it's centered, it's our place of power and confidence. And it's the place that connects to much greater wisdom, the wisdom we've been collecting all our lives since we were in the womb, and the wisdom of the field of consciousness. So there's so much more available. And let me say about alignment, because this is one of the really key things. When we're not aligned within ourselves, sometimes the head is thinking one thing and the heart is wanting something else. And actually, that's when we sabotage ourselves. And it's when we actually receive resistance from outside. As a supervisor, sometimes coaches say to me, I'd love to use this model, but I'm afraid I've got pushback before from clients. And I say to them, well, if you align yourself, your head, your heart, and your gut, and just agree, actually, I'm just learning this, be honest with yourself and authentic, and then offer it as, would you be interested in working with this? I'm still learning it, but I know it is useful. The client won't have this sense of the fight within you. There'll be a purer energy, and they will 99% of the time say yes. And it's the same with leaders. If they're not aligned with themselves about something that they're wanting to do, they will get pushback from outside. It's guaranteed. So alignment with ourselves is hugely important. Anything you want to add from your own experience? I know you often say, about your gut decisions and your head decisions.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an energetic quality in terms of the presence, and there's important data and intelligence at these three centers. yeah, and I know in the past when I've been out of alignment, my gut has given me some very, very strong uh intuition, and
Mm,
for example, my head's overruled that.
mm,
And actually, often, well, one case in particular I often speak about when I'm with you, Monica, it's probably the worst decision I ever made. So just that sense of what you just described, that sort of collecting ourselves, that alignment, when we're
mm.
making decisions or we're taking action, is so important for us as coaches, but yeah, as you're saying, for our clients as well.
And as you say that, our head, heart, and gut have different voices and different tempos, different rhythms. So the head can be quite fast. You'll notice when clients are downloading you, they're giving lots of information and talking, but you don't actually feel anything in it. Whereas when they're speaking from the heart, there's a real slowness and a connection to self, and there's emotion attached to it. You can almost feel it, the warmth of it, and the passion. And when the gut is speaking, as you just said there, it's like, do this. And there's no translation for it, it's just an impulse. And quite often there, you can't translate it, you just follow it. I've learned, I always say follow your energy. So for me, my gut guides me, my heart guides me to a lot. And then I check with my head for kind of facts and but I spend a lot of time working on my heart. It's one of my interests.
Mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
And I suppose, when you're listening to clients at this stage, I can tell when a client is in their head. And I notice when clients get scared, or there's fear there, they go straight to their head. The heart is bypassed. It's like the gut comes in and it's fearful and it's lots of thinking and talking.
Mm.
Also, you just raised a point there. Let me just check.
Well,
You were
she's
saying,
asking, how do you work on your heart?
okay. Well, I spent the whole day in the final module of a training on something called the cosmic heart, which is working with heart energy. So it's an energetic thing. And uh, there was hands-on work involved, but there's also very much connecting in with the heart and speaking from the heart, and noticing the different quality when we speak from the heart.
Mm.
Um, so it's a mixture of energetic and dialogue.
Mm.
Thanks for the
Yeah,
question.
and there are other practices. I mean, even just simply, inviting a coachee to put their hand on their heart, um, to connect to that intelligence. Same thing with the gut center. Actually, a hand on the gut can be a nice way of helping them move into connection. Same for us when we want to align, perhaps a hand on our heart and a head,
And yeah.
as a way of really sort of bringing that more aligned and integrated. And I just want to obviously self-compassion practice, loving kindness, meditation practices. There's a lot we can do to heart math that Monica
Mm.
mentioned. They have a lot of exercises to really connect to heart intelligence as well.
And heart coherence, if we work together and we're really in rapport, it's almost like our hearts are in coherence and we're connected. You can almost see people breathing at the same time, and you can see it in the body language.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
I mean, Monica, I'm just going to bring up a summary of those centers. Excuse the picture for a moment. I'm just going to jump on. So I just wondered perhaps about inviting a bit of reflection, Monica, in terms of perhaps their experience today, even.
yeah. I just saw a quick question. So Elena, do you specifically talk to the coaches about the three centers so they're full? So in our training, we certainly do this. And as a supervisor, it depends, when I'm listening to somebody, if I'm supervising somebody, I will check where they're speaking from. I'll say, where's that coming from? So I don't do a kind of full on teach, but I do listen for, I'm scanning myself and scanning as I listen to the other person, where they might be coming from, and maybe invite them gently into another place. So I'm wondering actually if, as you see what's written up here about the uncentered and the centered, which I mentioned a moment ago, to invite all of you, just thinking of yourself this morning, from the time you got up to now, and maybe you've been working with clients or colleagues, just for a moment or two, check in with yourself. Where were you predominantly operating from? Was it head? The head is used a lot in our work world, practical things and getting things done. How much was your heart involved? And where did your gut get a look in or not? And which version, was it the centered or the uncentered? Maybe just take a moment to notice other people that you connected with. Holly, yeah, trying to move from head to heart with your children. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes, our head needs to get the things done and our heart wants to bring them along. I have now 2 grandsons. One is 2.5, and yeah, sometimes you just have to get them to do something for their own good or for safety. Yeah, Karen, gut this morning, needing to move to heart. And maybe do that now, Karen, as you're here. Just put your hand on your heart and ask, what does my heart say? Also, gut and your heart on your midday walk. And the centered mind is a real gift when it's a peaceful mind. And it's practices like centering that help us to access, centering or yoga, as you've just mentioned, Elena. That's what brings us into, and mindfulness as well, brings us into that place of the zone and feeling calmer, feeling more connected to ourselves and to others. Also, the dichotomy of gut to brain, cumbersome. Yeah, that's an interesting one. What would you say your challenge is? What's the biggest challenge for that also? You gravitate to gut. Okay. And there's a lovely exercise you can do. You can either do it in writing, like journaling. Okay, you need the brain, but you want to live in gut. And actually, we need them all. We need all 3. So there is an exercise which I sometimes use with clients and with supervisees, where I either get them to speak from their head, heart, and gut while they're working with me. I give them a few minutes to say, so let your head speak for a moment and, give it a bit of airspace. And then when the head has done its bit, and it'll say lots, I say, so now let's connect in with your heart. What does your heart want to say? And then I'll invite the gut to come in, and then get them to give me an aligned voice. And sometimes the aligned voice is, what is it that we're all trying to do here? What's the key? What's the purpose that's most important? And that will bring a sense of a more balanced voice or a balanced result. So you can either do that in journaling, or you can actually get somebody to speak it out, or speak it out yourself, and record yourself. It could be very interesting what comes out. Sometimes when the heart and the gut speak, you say things that you actually didn't realize you had inside of you. We do that exercise on some of the embodied modules as well, and on the retreats. And we also bring in the bigger, bring in your support, your ancestors, your posse, and what they want to support you with.
So Monica, of course, we'd always say, integrate this for ourselves in terms of really, I suppose, reflecting on the idea of personality and center in terms of these three energetic centers. So we can start to notice those qualities of centered and personality in ourselves, whether that's the head, the heart, the gut. And then, we can start to notice our clients as well and where they're coming from. As you're saying, we can invite in these other centers, giving them voice, giving the client a sense to align all three centers when they're making a decision, so they're very congruent in their work. I suppose in the final sort of minutes of this conversation, I just wondered anything else that you just wanted to say in terms of how coaches might use this as a I suppose as a guide, in terms of when they're working with somebody, how it might inform them,
Well, at this stage, you probably know me, Damion. I always say start with yourself, and to build a practice yourself of tuning into your own head, heart, and gut, and noticing whether, oh, am I overextending? Am I kind of trying to do the work with the client? Or am I coming from a place of compassion and availability and openness? So build your own practice, and that will make you really aware and sensitive when you're listening to others. And I think it's important for us as coaches not to be imposing something on others, but that because we do it ourselves, it can be very invitational. If you're very confident in using it yourself, then there's a sense of, again, there's no friction and there's nothing getting in the way. And thanks also for, you said you agree with me, how much you're not aware in terms of what you hold in the centers. Yeah, it's, all of us have very interesting and valuable information in our centers. And it's about becoming more of yourself, more authentic, more confident, and trusting your full self, not just this piece, which we've been trained to favor. All of you is brought into the space and is welcome.
Thank you, Monica.